click. My thumb slipped off the heavy red button of the landline. The dial tone hissed through the speaker, a flat, metallic drone, like a dying bee trapped against a window pane. I didn't hang the receiver back on the wall. I just let it drop. It swung by its coiled gray cord, knocking against the baseboard. Thud, thud. I am 82 years old. 3 minutes ago, the speaker was vibrating with the sound of my only daughter, weeping, hyperventilating, screaming that I was abandoning her. I didn't say a word. I just pressed the red button. Today, at 900 sharp, I sat in a leather chair at a law firm and wrote her out of my will, the house, the life insurance, the remaining $14,000 by checking account, gone, stripped down to zero. You think I'm a monster, don't you? A bitter, rotting old woman turning her back on her own flesh and blood, a mother who failed. Let me show you something. Look at this dining table. The oak is deeply scratched on the left side. Right in the dead center sits a tin box, faded blue, floral pattern. The kind that used to hold Danish butter cookies. Its edges are sealed shut with a single thick strip of masking tape. The tape has turned dark yellow, brittle. I haven't opened it in 20 years. Before you judge a mother who legally erases her child from her existence, you need to understand the price I paid to keep that tape from peeling off. Because those hysterical, breathless tears you just heard on that phone line, they weren't for me. They were for the atom that just permanently swallowed her card. It started 20 years ago, the first crisis. My kitchen floor was peeling near the sink. Faded yellow linoleum. The front door swung open, no knock, just the scrape of the deadbolt. A cloud of Tom Ford Black Orchid entered the room before she did. Heavy, rich, $200 a bottle. It settled over the smell of my burnt toast. She collapsed into the vinyl kitchen chair. The metal leg squeaked. Mom, the bank is foreclosing. I'm ruined. I looked at her hands covering her face, freshly manicured, French tips, crisp white edges. Not a single chip. A Prada handbag, black calfskin, silver hardware, rested right on top of my stack of unpaid utility bills. She needed $4,000 by 5 p.m. or she and the girls would be out on the street. The foreclosure notices were real, she swore. Her ex-husband was dodging child support. The world was against her. I didn't ask about the Prada bag. I didn't ask how much the salon charged for the French tips. I just opened the top drawer, pulled out my checkbook. The blue leather cover was worn white at the corners. My pen scratched against the paper. 4000. I tore the check on the perforated line, a sharp zitz. I slid it across the linoleum counter. It stopped exactly an inch from her designer bag. Her manicured fingers snatched the paper. A quick, wet peck on my cheek, smudged red lipstick. You saved my life, Mom. I'll pay you back next month. I promise. The front door slammed shut. The lock clicked. I stood alone in the kitchen. The $4,000 was gone. The bank account was nearly hollow, and that suffocating Tom Ford perfume. It lingered in my kitchen for 3 entire days. I thought I was buying her safety, but I was actually just paying the first installment of a 20-year ransom. The first check was a mistake. It established my exact exchange rate. I wrapped them in heavy silver foil, tied them with thick red velvet ribbons. I placed them under the small plastic pine tree next to the radiator in the corner. December came and went. January, February, March. The radiator clicked and hissed. The dust settled on the silver foil. A thick, gray film dulling the red velvet. Then the phone would ring. Mom, the girls are asking about you. A breath. We want to visit this weekend, but my transmission is slipping. The mechanic quoted $800. It's just not safe to put the kids in that car right now. The hostage negotiation. The terms were always clear. Buy the transmission, or the grandkids stay home. Sunday afternoon. The gravel in my driveway crunched under the tires of her heavy SUV. The engine stayed running. The exhaust pipe choked the cold winter air with thick white smoke. The girls tumbled out of the back seat. 2 quick, stiff hugs. The smell of cheap strawberry bubble gum. 5 minutes, not a second longer. My daughter didn't even unbuckle her seatbelt. She just rolled down the tinted window, hand extended, palm facing the gray sky. I pushed a sealed white bank envelope through the gap. It was thick, stiff with crisp $100 bills. Her fingers snapped closed around the paper. "Thanks, Mom. Get back in, girls. We're late for gymnastics." The window hummed as it rolled up. The tires spun, spitting loose gravel against my shins. The red taillights vanished around the bend. $800, 5 minutes, $160 a minute. That was the exact market value of feeling two small arms around my neck. I walked back into the house. The lock clicked shut behind me. I stared at the corner of the living room. The silver boxes were still sitting in the dust, unopened, untouched. And they would stay exactly right there, until the next time her rent was due. 80, a milestone, society says. I went to the Safeway bakery section at noon. I bought a single slice of vanilla sponge cake. The frosting was stiff, artificial yellow, squeezed from a plastic tube. I slid it out of the clear clamshell container onto a flimsy paper plate. I set it on the dining table. Just a few inches away from that rusted butter cookie tin, I sat in the wooden chair, my spine pressed against the hard rungs. Tick, the grandfather clock in the hallway. Talk. The heavy brass pendulum swung left, right, cutting through the dead air of the house. 7:00 p.m. The streetlights flickered on. An amber glow bled through the closed blinds. 8 p.m. The local news played on the television. I had the volume muted, just flashing colors on the wall. 9 p.m. The yellow frosting on the cake began to crack, drying out in the room's temperature. My black flip phone sat flat on the oak table. No blinking green light, no vibration, just a dark, silent brick. I stared at the screen. I watched the digital numbers shift. 11:58, 11:59, bong. The grandfather clock struck midnight. 12 heavy hollow chimes. The brass vibrated into the floorboards. The day was dead. I picked up the paper plate. I walked to the kitchen and scraped the untouched cake into the trash can. A dull thwack against the plastic liner. 14 hours later. 2:00 p.m. the next afternoon. The black phone suddenly buzzed. A harsh mechanical rattling against the wood table. I flipped the screen open. The green backlight illuminated one new text message. "Happy belated, crazy week. B2 Wire, can you wire $500? Power bill is past due." No phone call. No sound of her voice, just 66 characters on a glowing screen. And 45 of them were a demand for a wire transfer. Screech. The brown packing tape ripped off the plastic dispenser. A harsh, violent sound echoing off bare walls. My knuckles were thick, inflamed. I pressed the tape down over a corrugated cardboard box labeled "Kitchen." A stranger in muddy work boots stood in my hallway. He counted out 6 crumpled $50 bills. He hoisted my cherrywood dining chairs onto his broad shoulders. The chairs my late husband bought in 1976. The ones he polished every Sunday. The heavy oak front door clicked shut. The house was empty. I didn't keep the $300. It went into the same bottomless pit as the equity from the house. Her second divorce. A ruthless lawyer who billed $400 an hour. Her luxury lifestyle brand that never sold a single item to keep her afloat. I sank. I handed over the brass keys to my 4-bedroom home. The hardwood floors. The garden with the white rose bushes I planted the week I brought her home from the maternity ward. Now I am in Unit 4B. 500 square feet. The hallway carpet smells like wet wool and old nicotine. The refrigerator motor grinds every 20 minutes. A heavy metallic shaking. I have to turn my shoulders sideways just to walk between the mattress and the closet. The only piece of furniture I kept was the scratched oak dining table. I sawed the legs down 2 inches so it would fit under the low ceiling and sitting right in the center of it, taking up almost all my empty space. Is that taped-up butter cookie tin? I folded my entire life into a damp, dark shoebox, just so she wouldn't have to sell her designer shoes. Beep, beep, beep. The fluorescent lights above my hospital bed hummed, a blinding sterile white that burned the back of my retinas. The air tasted like bleach and stale applesauce. I opened my eyes. The left side of my face dragged against the stiff pillowcase. Heavy, numb. I looked down at my hand. A thick gauge-IVE needle, taped aggressively against my paper-thin skin. A sprawling, dark purple bruise blooming around the clear plastic tube. A TIA, the doctor called it. A mini-stroke. A warning shot from the grave. I turned my head, slowly. The vertebrae in my neck clicked. In the corner of room 312 sat a cheap maroon vinyl visitor's chair. Not a single crease in the cushion, no coat draped over the back. Completely empty. My black flip phone sat on the rolling tray table, right next to a melting plastic cup of ice chips. The screen was dead black. 0 missed calls. 3 days. 72 hours of blood pressure cuffs inflating, rubber soles squeaking on linoleum. Midnight vital checks. The night nurse adjusted my thin blanket. Her voice was high-pitched, dripping with that practiced clinical pity. "Any family coming to sit with you today, sweetheart?" I didn't answer her. I didn't blink. I just stared straight up at the acoustic ceiling tiles. I counted the yellow water stains. 1, 2, 3. Lying in that mechanized bed, the illusion finally snapped. A clean, dry break. I wasn't a mother in that room. I was just an expiring asset that she simply hadn't found a way to liquidate yet. Bzzz, zooz, bzzz. The black flip phone vibrated against the cheap laminate nightstand. It slowly inched toward the edge with every harsh buzz. I picked it up. My left hand still trembled slightly from the stroke. The plastic felt cold against my palm. I pressed the green button. I brought the speaker to my ear. Mom. Not a, "How are you?" Not a, "Did the hospital discharge you?" Just a single word. And then, the pitch. I know that pitch. The exact practiced octave of manufactured panic. A sharp theatrical intake of breath. "The ERS is auditing my business. They're going to freeze all my accounts by Friday." A sniffle. The rustling of fabric on her end. "My lawyer says there's a loophole. I need you to sign over Unit 4B to me, just on paper. We can pull a small equity loan against it to clear the tax lien. If you don't, they'll take it from you anyway." Eyes stared at the blistered white paint peeling off my windowsill, the last 500 square feet of roof over my 82-year-old head. I didn't speak. I just listened to the background noise through the receiver. Smack. Pop. She was chewing gum. A wet, rhythmic popping sound right between her desperate, breathless sobs. She was painting her nails, or scrolling through a catalog. The tears were just a backing track. My heart monitor had been silenced at the hospital, but in that tiny, damp bedroom, I could hear my own pulse thumping in my ears, slow, heavy. She hadn't called to see if I survived the night. She had called to harvest the remaining scraps of my corpse. The elevator hummed. Floor 18. I lowered myself into the oversized wingback leather chair. It squeaked beneath my frail weight. He didn't offer me a glass of water. He didn't ask about the purple bruise still fading on my left hand. He just slid a thick stack of heavy ivory paper across the polished grain. A yellow sticky note tabbed page 4. Section IN2 Psi. Beneficiaries. There it was, typed in crisp, black, 12-point ink. To my only daughter. He uncapped a heavy gold fountain pen. He placed it exactly parallel to the document. The metal caught the glare of the overhead light. My fingers were stiff. The cold gold barrel bit into my arthritis. I pressed the sharp nib against the thick ivory paper. The black ink bled instantly. A dark, wet pool soaking into the fibers. I dragged the tip sideways. Scree, a thick, solid, unwavering line. Right through her first, middle, and last name, slicing through 46 years of existence. I didn't lift the pen. I dragged it down to the next paragraph. Scratch. Through the life insurance policy, scratch. Through the deed to Unit 4B. I moved to the right margin. I pressed down hard and signed my initials. 3 jagged, shaking letters. Mr. Higgins pulled the paper back. He didn't blink. He reached for his notary seal. He pressed down, a heavy, hollow thud against the mahogany wood. It was done. 60 years of labor, of midnight feedings, of selling my soul for her survival. Erased from the earth by a single ounce of black ink. The green light of the speakerphone cast a sickly neon glow across the scratched oak table. Her voice hissed through the cheap plastic grate, distorted by cellular static and raw, unfiltered panic. The teller at Chase Bank had just handed her a slip of paper. The joint checking account was closed. The line of credit was frozen. $0, 0 cents. First came the breathless sobbing, the hyperventilation, the victim script she had perfected over 2 decades. "Mom, how could you do this to us? The girls are crying." We are going to be homeless because of you." I sat in my sawed-off wooden chair. I traced the deep gouge in the wood with my arthritic thumbnail. I didn't say a word. The silence stretched across the phone line, heavy, unyielding. Then, the pivot. When the fake tears hit a brick wall, the venom finally leaked out. The mask slipped completely. "You are a selfish, senile old bat. You will die alone in that damp little cell. I will make sure Emma and Lily forget what you even look like." The ultimate threat, the grandchildren. Her favorite rusted weapon, my right thumb hovered over the heavy red button on the receiver. The plastic was smooth, worn down from years of rushing to answer her endless emergencies. I didn't argue. I didn't remind her of the 4-bedroom house I sold, the antique chairs, the $4,000 Tom Ford bailouts. I didn't defend the marrow she had sucked from my bones. I just pushed my thumb down. Click, the speakerphone went dead. The green light snapped off. I sat back in the chair. I had just orphaned myself, and it was the quietest my apartment had been in 20 years. The room was perfectly still, just the hum of the refrigerator motor in Unit 4B. I reached across the scratched oak wood. My arthritic thumbnail dug under the edge of the yellowed masking tape. The adhesive was completely dry, brittle, up. It flaked into tiny, dusty pieces against my knuckles. The sound of a 20-year seal finally breaking. I gripped the rusted floral lid. Scraw, iron grinding against iron. A harsh, metallic screech in the dead silence. The smell of trapped, stale air drifted up. I reached inside the empty tin. My shaking index finger and thumb pinched a fragile, paper-thin object. I pulled it out into the dim overhead light. A faded, pink hospital index card. The edges were soft and frayed. In the center, stamped in fading black ink, were 2 tiny footprints. Baby girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. This was the child I spent 4 decades trying to save. The one I sold my house for. The one I starved myself for. She died a very long time ago. I just spent the last 20 years funding the ghost that took her place. I let the pink card slip from my fingers. It fluttered down, landing softly at the bottom of the rusted tin. I looked up. Straight into the cold glass lens of this camera. Look at my face. Look at these hollow eyes. Do not buy your children's affection with the money you need to survive your final years. They do not love you. They love your checking account. They love the equity in your home. They love the free child care. The exact second your bank balance hits 0 is the exact second you become a burden. Close your checkbook. Call a lawyer. Change your locks. Because freezing to death in the dark is a hell of a lot worse than dying alone.